So, welcome back to Fatal Funeral Friday. In today's episode, we're going to be discussing the case of Diane Zamora and the murder of Adrian Zone. And so, there's a lot of details in this one. So, yeah, let's just go ahead and get started. So, Diane Michelle Zamora was born on January 21st in 1978. She was born to a family that was very religious, however, didn't have much. And she was actually the oldest child, which I can relate because I'm the oldest on my mom's side. When she was actually younger, she actually wanted to be an astronaut, and she would wake up at like 6 o'clock in the morning because she had honors classes. She was also was in several clubs. She played the flute for her school band, was even on her school's cross country team. Unfortunately, during Diane's childhood, her father would actually cheat on her mother with like a younger woman, so this caused Diane to like not have any trust in men whatsoever.
Emotional damage.
So one day, her and her mom apparently broke into a house that she thought that her dad and the mistress would have been in, but it was actually an elderly person who was bedridden.
Boiling myself.
Not much is really said about what happened after that, so I assume no charges were pressed. And so, her life had turned around when she had met this guy named David Graham when she was 14 at an air patrol meeting. I guess they like clicked at the meeting because they decided to keep in touch. David Graham was born November 2nd, 1977. He allegedly had an abusive mother, and when he was 7, he allegedly killed the family dog in order to get back at her. She would leave for periods of time, but
why are you running? Why are you running?
He would be under the care of his father, who really didn't seem to care a lot about him. It is said that at one point, apparently, he took a trip to Canada and lost his virginity to some unknown Canadian girl, and apparently gained more experience as a result, so which I guess is safe to assume life experience. Diane had actually had a boyfriend before David, but she broke up with him because he wanted to have sex with her, like, prior to marriage, like premarital sex. Remember, she grew up from a religious family, so obviously that was a big no for her. And so because of this, her and David actually started dating 3 years later when she was 17, and only a month after they started dating, they had actually announced their engagement and the wedding day they had set.
No ma'am. No ma'am. No ma'am. No ma'am.
The day that they said to be married was the summer after they both had already graduated college, so like the summer of 2000. She wanted to marry a virgin so that they would be able to give their virginities to each other. So not long after their engagement, apparently David had told Diane that he had been unfaithful, and he had intercourse with a teammate on the track team, a 16-year-old Adrian Jones. And so apparently he had felt guilty, and that's the reason he had told her. And so obviously, Diane's upset because obviously, I didn't mention this. Apparently she had gave her virginity to him out of wedlock, even though she really didn't want to. But they felt that they were in love at the time, so like she felt as long as we get married, it'll be okay. Like that will make me an honorable woman as long as we still get married. And so basically, she felt that the love was tainted because, well, I did what I did for you, and yet you went and slept with someone else. So obviously, she's hurt, as she should be. So she felt so hurt, in fact, that she wanted Adrian to die. A little backstory on Adrian. Adrian was actually born June 18, 1979 in Maysville, Texas. Apparently, she was the only daughter to Bill and Linda, and she actually had brothers, Justin and Scott. The family had actually moved to Mansfield from Dallas in 1983 to have a feel of the small town life. Because Adrian was the only daughter, she had a 9 p.m. curfew every night, even on weekends. If she was out any later than that, which obviously she's a teenager, so there's going to be times that she's going to be out later than that, she had to bring like a ticket stub as proof of where she was. So she was at the fair, she went to like a movie stub, some sort of proof that she was at where she claimed she was at. The rules only apparently made Adrian want to break them even more, and her father had even apparently nailed her window shut after suspicion that she was sneaking out, which apparently she was, because it's a common thing teenagers did. She was in honors classes and apparently actually did soccer, but of course she had an injury to her knee, so she had to transfer over to cross country. She also worked part-time at Golden Fried Chicken and was actually said to be a wonderful employee. Regions for cross countries were said to be in Lubbock, Texas in November of 1995. So apparently the school, like the cross country team, got in a van, drove 5 hours to Lubbock, did regionals, then came back, and Adrian said that a ride home from a girl named Wendy. Apparently, that seemed to be confirmed. On December 3rd, her boyfriend had actually apparently called at 10:30 at night. His name was Tracy Smith, and he was actually going to another school. It just happened to be out of town around that time. Mother was actually said to be listening in on the calls, which apparently someone else had called, so then she switched over to them, and then she switched back to Tracy, said goodnight to him, and then switched back to the person who had called after Tracy. And so, of course, her mom asked her, who was out on the phone, and then she said that it was apparently a David from cross country. Her mom, of course, didn't know who that was, but, she didn't think nothing of it, because apparently, Adrian was a really popular girl, so, of course, she knew a lot of people. Her mom came back to check on her.
15 minutes later.
Saw that she was in deep thought. Apparently, she saw nothing of it and didn't ask, and then she, went to sleep that night. On December 4th, around 1 a.m., David had actually called Adrian, apparently, to get out of the house, and so, unfortunately, she had actually left the house with him. Diane, which, of course, Adrian didn't know this, otherwise I don't think she would have got in. Diane was actually apparently in the back seat of the car, and so, they drove to a secluded place, which, that's a red flag right there. Diane apparently got out, confronted Adrian, asked her, did you enjoy sleeping with my boyfriend? Apparently, she said no, and then in Diane's mind, which, of course, we can't confirm this happened because Adrian is not here, so she can't speak her side. But, of course, to Diane, that basically confirms that she did, in fact, sleep with David, at least since she had said no. And so, apparently, the original plan was, David to break her neck and then, throw her in the lake with the weights that he had in the back of the car with Diane. So, while in this abandoned area, David had obviously attacked her because, again, the plan at this point was to kill her, but Adrian had fought back. David apparently is later quoted as saying it was harder to snap her neck than it is shown in the movies.
No shit, Sherlock!
And also apparently Adrian had went out one of the side windows, but she had fell into a barbed wire fence. David wanted to leave, but Diane wanted the job finished before they could leave.
Do it! Just do it!
So David walks over to her and gives her 2 shots in the head, which apparently the second shot is what actually killed her. And then they get back in the car, and as they're driving, away from the crime scene, they basically say that, oh, wow, we should have done that.
Oh my God! Wow!
When Adrian didn't show up to school, her parents had officially reported her missing. They had found, a contact book that Adrian had and contacted apparently everyone that was in that book. The mom goes to talk to the cross-country coach to see if he knows of a David, since he's the coach. And the coach said the only David he could think of was actually a David Graham, which is Diane's boyfriend. Yeah, they go to the same school. The coach apparently got another student to see if Adrian did speak to David that night, at all. And David actually claimed that he didn't even know Adrian, so it was believed that the name David was a cover. Because, David is a common name, so... And so, yeah, unfortunately, Farmer was driving in Grand Prairie, Texas, which is 10 minutes outside of Mansfield. Unfortunately, comes across the body of Adrian Jones, which at first he thought was a prank or like a cruel prank or a setup. He waited for a bit to see whether she was alive or dead, and of course, after her not moving, he realized that, yes, she was in fact dead. This was not a setup. Her head was beat in, and she was shot either 2 or 3 times, but most sources say at least 2. So, we're going with at least 2 here. So, of course, he calls 911. Apparently, it's discovered her father apparently was the one who had to identify his own daughter's body. Investigators also checked the house to see, and saw that it wasn't an abduction, see that she went willingly, which means for her to go willingly this late at night, it must have been someone that she knew.
Damn, Jackie, that could be anybody!
They started interviewing people, but then they started, making a list of people to, start giving lie detector tests to, and also to interview. One of her brothers actually gave a tip about the vehicle being a pickup truck, so they tried to see who all had a pickup truck to see narrow down a list of suspects as for who was responsible for Adrian's murder. A tree was actually planted in Adrian's memory. Many students were also saying that they didn't like how the killer was obviously still out there, and they were feared that any one of them could be next. This isn't a personal murder, but this is the start of a serial killer, basically. A psychic was even contacted, but nothing basically came out of it. Her mom apparently had her reasons as to why she actually believed it was David Graham. However, he was not in the address book, and her own close personal friends even said that they weren't even that close. The only reason that David was even on the radar in the first place because she had mentioned that she had talked to a David the night before she was killed, and his name just happened to be David. When he was originally questioned, he considered himself just acquaintances with her. He had spoken to her in a while, but apparently he had cried and been openly upset about Adrian's murder. And so David was actually determined to not need a lie detector test because he seemed sincere and was actually cleared. A girl named Tara, which apparently that's not her real name, looks like a fake name because she was a minor at the time apparently this happened. She was now a suspect in the case. She had once shot one of her boyfriends, which had resulted in a serious wound for him.
What's going on? Y'all are going to jail! Period!
She apparently had attacked one of Adrian's friends with a baseball bat because she thought that her own boyfriend was cheating on her with Adrian's friend, resulting in a broken cheekbone and concussion.
Damn!
The girl obviously set a restraining order against Tara, and Adrian apparently, because she was a witness to the crime, she went and testified in court against Tara, and that is believed to be the motive for the murder. And she even said apparently in court that she'll get her.
I'll get you, my pretty, and your little dog, too.
She had an alibi, so she was cleared. Her boyfriend at the time had actually also been cleared too, even though he never checked on her parents or anything to make sure they were okay after it had just been publicly announced that their own daughter / his girlfriend at the time had just been found brutally murdered.
That's suspicious. That's weird.
But apparently Brian had passed a polygraph and it gave him the name of Brian McMillan, which apparently is a guy that would visit Adrian all the time while she was working at Subway. Apparently Brian would follow her around to the point to where she would actually hide whenever she saw him in the subway. Tracy said there was also Brian that she was actually talking to that night. Brian was questioned. He originally claimed that he actually didn't know her, but basically confessed now saying that he knows her and that they are actually friends.
Oh, as if.
He claimed that he was actually drinking that night about being upset about being single and being left out, so he wasn't even sure that he can't even remember if they had even talked that night. So Brian was eventually arrested and actually was in jail for 3 weeks where he was made through a polygraph. He'd actually passed with flying colors. Eventually Brian was also let go because due to lack of evidence, and obviously it seemed that he was telling the truth. And so his family obviously sued over undisclosed amount. I don't know if they won, but I really hope that they did. Diane and David had actually went on to graduate, coming home late from work. She meets a guy named Jay. She tries to pursue him, seduce him, the works. And of course he says no.
Rejected! Rejected! Yeah, you just got rejected! R-E-J-E-C-T-E-D rejected! R-E-J-E-C-T-E-D rejected!
All right.
She laughs and tells David that Jay tried to kiss her. David actually tried to get Jay in trouble. I don't know if it's because of this or for whatever reason, but luckily nothing ever happened to Jay.
Many months later. 2
cadets apparently had made a report that a roommate of theirs, apparently had confessed to the murder of Adrian Jones. They didn't want to believe it, of course, but Diane has to do so much information so that only the killer or somebody who was on scene would know. And so, of course, they're like, with this information they know, we have to tell somebody. This is when Diane finally becomes on the radar for being a suspect in Adrian's murder. And so Diane had also been asked to go on temporary leave while this was under investigation because, she was a murder suspect now, and obviously she was very upset about that. So she flies to Colorado Springs instead of flying back to Texas to go see David. So basically, flying to Colorado Springs, tell David that they know that we're involved. And David also said that he would do the same. So basically deny. And then said that he would say that maybe she was just bored as to why she said that.
Really, nigga?
David, of course, failed the lie detector and was questioned for 2 days without a lawyer, and it said that apparently they had threatened him with the possibility of the death penalty if he didn't confess to the murder.
Death to all of them.
So, of course, this scares David into writing a 4.5-page confession. So now police apparently have enough evidence to arrest Diane. So they arrest her the next day, and she was actually at her grandparents' house, and so she went quietly, and then she was posted for $250,000 bail. They then proceed to show her David's confession, which despite not reading all of it, their confessions were basically the same. So it seemed that the stories they both give seemed to work out. 3 days later, David apparently was actually charged with murder with kidnapping, added, so the death penalty was possible, at least for him. Adrian's parents had actually stepped in and said, they didn't want to see them get the death penalty. They actually wanted to see them spend the rest of their life in prison without the possibility of parole. The gun and dumbbells used in the murder were actually found in David's parents' attic, whereas Adrian's blood was actually found on Diane's car. David proceeds to take this time to announce that he was actually coerced into writing something, but he wasn't sure about how it would affect his actual life.
You're so dumb. You are really dumb. For real.
Before the trial actually even started, they actually came out with a movie. It was called Swearing Allegiance. But apparently the networks for both of these movies, they had decided to not show the movie until after the trial was over, but they could only apparently control that in the nearby area. So not nationwide, but in the nearby area. And then apparently they showed a movie called Tender Mercies instead. They were actually kept in the same jail but separated, so obviously there was a lot of love notes being exchanged. The judges decided they were to be tried separately, even though they both were being tried as adults, despite Diane actually being a minor at the time the murder was committed, and they both had the audacity to plead not guilty.
Bitch. The dog.
So this is around the time the two would apparently change their pleas from guilty to not guilty. And so Diane's trial had actually started in January 1998 in Fort Worth, Texas. A former friend of David's named John Green Jr. had testified that the two had basically slept on the floor at his house the night of the murder, and that Diane had apparently called Adrian a slut and a tramp. And then apparently Diane also had a planner, and she had the name Adrian marked in her planner the night of the murder. It was circled for 1:38 a.m. exactly.
You're so dumb. You are really dumb. For real.
Defense basically tried to say that Diane only confessed to protect David despite him being allegedly controlling and abusive, and that David tried to pin it all on David, and that Diane was just an innocent bystander.
Why the fuck you lying? Why you always lying? Oh my god. Stop fucking lying.
And then, of course, they eventually put her on the stand so she could speak, and so she cried a lot, and that's actually where her story changes again. And so luckily, prosecutors didn't believe the whole crying act. When it was time for the prosecution to question her, she apparently went from all scared and emotional and crying to very calm. She even said that all the witnesses were liars and that she actually had nothing to do with Adrian's death. And so on February 17th, 1998, Diane Zabora would actually be charged with Adrian's murder, and she would actually be served with life without possibility of parole after 40 years. It is then later said that hours after that verdict, she allegedly tried to commit suicide by a razor to her own left wrist. David's trial did not actually start until July of that year, and so due to the national coverage of this case, they had to move it to New Brownsville, Texas. And so once David found out that Diane was pinning everything on him and calling him abusive and controlling, he obviously called the engagement off. Defense claims said the only thing that's really tying David to the murder scene was his confession, which should be thrown out because apparently he was awake for 30 hours and did not have a lawyer, which apparently, you have the right to a lawyer when you're being interrogated. So apparently it was revealed sometime during the trial that night that he said he allegedly took Adrian home, apparently he was actually taken home by on July 24th. The jury is out for 8 hours before they decide that David is guilty, and he is obviously sentenced to 40 years, just like Diane. Apparently he shortly does an interview after this conviction. It says the whole original confession was a lie. To this day, they both actually deny the original confession that they both gave.
Bitch. The dog.
David said the best part about going to prison was actually getting away from Diane.
And
So I feel like that would tell you a lot about their relationship. David somehow actually got married back in 2010. He now currently has a degree in criminology, which I feel that's kind of ironic. Diane herself apparently even got married back in 2003 to somebody that she met in prison, but later got divorced from that person in 2008.
And
Her only friend currently in prison, at least from what I saw, apparently was the same woman that killed Selena. In 2015, it is said that she tried to have her and Yolanda moved to protective custody because they both have such high profile cases. So apparently that makes them more in danger when they're with the other inmates because their profile case is so high. And of course it got
rejected. Yeah, you just got rejected. REJECTED rejected. REJECTED rejected.
All right.
she claimed that being with the other prisoners violated her rights. And so so her and David are possibly up for parole in 2036. And so that is the case of Diane Zabora and the murder of Adrian Jones. So yeah, I hope that you like this case, and I hope I will see you with this next case. I will see you fatal females with the next case. Bye.